Here on the Creative Thinker Podcast, we discuss all theories, philosophy, and thought behind the creative process. And we hope that you find some inspiration along the way.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast. My name is Henry Moon, and I am joined by the wonderful, the magnanimous, the crowd favorite,
Michael, the immortal Mexican Vasquez.
Let's dive into our topic for the day, which is starting your big ideas. It's about time, and it's also never too late. So let's jump into starting your big ideas. We all have our dream idea, our dream business, our dream book, our dream sports outcomes, athletic goals. We all have something in our life that is this big goal. I had a conversation with a friend who I won't throw under the bus, but if you're listening, we're about to take a deep dive into our conversation from the other day. So I had a friend who was talking about more or less a 10-year plan for opening a food truck. And there was all these gates between them and their idea. It was like, I need to finish paying off my car payment. I need to then start saving up money for me for emergencies. And then I need to start saving up money to make the down payment on this food truck. And then I gotta, make sure it's up to code. I gotta start applying for permits, like this whole laundry list of things that they can't do today. And so my point to him was, why not just start where you're at? He's got this massive grill already. He makes food for like tons and tons of people. He takes it with him everywhere he goes. This is like he's giving food wherever he's at. And it's like, why not just do the steps that you can that are in front of you right now? What can you do to make your daily routine look like what you want it to be? And instead of it being 10 years from now, why not start tomorrow?
Yeah.
So that's what kicked off this episode, is just breaking down what you want to do into its component parts and making your life about that thing.
That's good. That's good. I like it. I think a lot of the times, we'll talk about a couple different topics in today's episode, but I think the fear and all those gatekeeping ideas, I think that stops a lot of people from, hitting those big ideas. I think I'm thinking through the mindset of like personal training and kickboxing. A lot of people are like, well, this idea of wanting to already be fit before you go into the gym. Like the reason people go to the gym is to just start their process, right? Everyone's going to start at a different time. Everyone's going to be at a different level, but you can't be already at this certain, fitness level or whatever, and then start going to the gym. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people gatekeep themselves is just doing it, just starting. If you don't just start, then you're never going to hit that goal. And of course, again, talking physically, but even creatively, like I know we've talked a lot about, when we're writing our short stories or novels or whatever, it's like, well, I want to make sure that I have the full comprehension of, the English language, or I want to make sure I've read a couple books before I can start writing it down, because I need to really understand like what a good introduction is and what like a good story beat is. But I'm still not going to be reaching my goal if I'm not putting anything down pen to paper.
I think like the two good points in that for sure are the fear. I know that affects everybody, right? We're all afraid of starting new things, all afraid of looking silly, all afraid of, it's almost like that black and white mindset that it's like, unless everything's perfect, it's going to be terrible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no gray area in the middle, which is totally untrue. And we know that, but is that emotional, like almost fight or flight type instinct is like, I'm going to run from this because I'm probably going to make a mistake. I'm probably going to mess up. I forget the study. I'm going to misquote this, but there's some study that's like you should start things when you're about 60% competent. When you feel like about 60% of it, that's when you should start. But they did like a follow-up one like 5 years later that was like most people do about 40%. They know about 40% of what they should know when they start. And that's when people feel confident enough to start. And my submission is you can start at like 10 or 15%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I saw a meme the other day that was about working out. And it's like, let your today be fueled by your next year.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Where basically, like, if you want to have a fitness goal, like I want to be fit, then let next year's you be your drive to show up today. Because if you don't show up today, you're not going to have next year's you. So it's like, if you're trying to start something, think of like, try to visualize what that's going to look like. You know, like for me, if I start working out right now, like I've never been a bodybuilder. I don't have any passion in that area, but I like to be healthy.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, well, I'll probably lose a few pounds and have an easier time moving stuff around the house, you know, right?
Yeah.
If I spend an hour in the gym every day or 5 days a week or whatever,
Right.
you know. And so it's like envisioning what that looks like for you is a great place to start, and a great way to get past that fear is to realize most people are operating on 40% understanding of the task, and that is the vast majority. Now we have access, because of the internet and TV and all that stuff, we have access to the people in the world who are the greatest at whatever they do, and you can pick almost anything, any task there is, and find the greatest in the world at it in a matter of minutes. And that can be crushing, or that can expand the fear that you're feeling. But know that person, just like, you know, if you were to say, well, I've never played basketball before, but I'm going to get on the court with LeBron James. Well, you're going to get just destroyed.
Yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't mean that everybody else that's playing, like, you know, D3 college basketball, you couldn't at least be a little bit competitive with, you know, like, which is like the majority of people are like little sub D1, right?
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, they started somewhere as well. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget, is when you do compare yourself to, you know, the greatest at your craft, they forget to think like, oh, well, they started at some point. I was listening to an interview with one of the rappers I like to listen to, Harry Mack, and they compared him to Eminem, and, you know, trying to, I think he was talking about like his fear of becoming big. And he was like, well, if people keep on comparing me to Eminem, but I try not to take too much heart in that, because that could also crumble people to be compared to like this GOAT, this person that's, you know, on this platform that does, you know, that is the best in their field. To some people, that fear of like, oh man, I don't want to be compared to them because I don't want to mess up and then not be them, you know? I think that it's another fear, another gatekeep of not trying to be like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, like, and time on the mountain, like you're talking about, like a tennis example, because I was just watching Roland Garros a couple days ago, and Novak Djokovic, who up until a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago, nobody was talking about was the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
It was all Nadal and Federer, because they had the great matches. They had like the rivalry that was bringing in all the fans and all the sponsorship dollars. And it was Roger Federer was always going to be the greatest tennis player ever. And he's definitely one of the greatest. And he's definitely so fluid and fun to watch. But he's got 20 majors, which is an insane other fact. In the last 20 years, I think they've won 20 years. So that's 80 majors. Between the three of those guys, they've won 62 of those majors. Anyway, so Djokovic just won 22, his 22nd, which puts him 2 ahead of everybody.
Wow.
Nobody ever talked about him. And some of those came after Federer retired, but still, it's like, he was a silent, you know, person. Like when he was real young, he was a little bit attitudey, but he was silent, as he should be as a professional athlete. But he was a silent contender, somebody who was just in the background working. I mean, yes and no, but in that arena of people. And then right at the end, he's showing everybody that, he's going to go down as the greatest because he's got the most wins, most income ever. And that's still an example of people at the top. So even among the greatest people, you know, even though there's only 3 people at the top, they're still vying for control, and none of them will really be considered the greatest without considering the other 2. And so even at that, context matters, and you're going to be fitting within the group that you're in. And it is okay to that's not the greatest in the world, or that's not making you $2 billion a month or whatever.
Yeah, I know. We talked about like the goats and everything, but bringing it back to, starting your big ideas, it's like they started their big idea somewhere. They didn't have to wait for the stars to align. And maybe they did. Maybe they were born into a family that already had that kind of dream for them, I guess, and kind of set them up to go onto that path. But just because you're not that, doesn't mean that you can't just start. People just have to start. I think, you see a bunch of, you never believe all the information you read on the internet, but there's some like meme or photo or whatever that talks about how, certain stars that we see in our eyes, they didn't get their start until, or they didn't become big until later in their age. I think like J.K. Rowling is like one of them, and Oprah, like they weren't, 15, 20 when they started their career and started their big success or whatever. It took a lot of time. They had to start somewhere. And I think that's the biggest thing that everyone needs to remember with your creative endeavor, whatever it is. Doing something, like you said, just one step at a time, can help you get to that goal, so that in 1 year you're a little bit closer to your goal, and then the next year you're a little bit closer to your goal, whatever that goal is.
I got one more story to reinforce the point, which is that I went to a tennis academy at the end of high school. There were, between the kids that I was helping coach over the summer and hit with and work with as other counselors, and the other kids I went to tennis academy with, one is still playing. I think, no, 3 of them are still playing pro. Mm-hmm. One of them is like top 20 in the world in doubles, Nicole Melishar. And she just got married not too long ago. So anyway, there's another name, but anyway, Nicole Melishar. And then one of them went on to be an actor, Amanis Fondi. He's going to be in Andor coming up, which is pretty cool. Sokka. Yeah, he was not in Andor. That's my bad. Thank you. He's going to be in Ahsoka, which I'm excited to see. And then one person started like a recycling business, and was able to sell it before he was 30 years old. And now it's just like vacationing around the world. He's set for life, dude. So 3 people out of thousands and thousands of people that came through that academy while I was there, not before or since, went on to achieve that level of fame, or that level of, like professionalism. But of the other thousands, I'd say like 80% of them played in college. That helped pay for their college. Yeah. So it's like most of us achieved a really great goal because we were there. Yeah. The very, very few went on to achieve that level of, insane super coolness, outside looking in, right? So all that to say, like the goal achieved by that many people to have their college partially paid for or mostly paid for, just for being good at a sport is amazing. And it's a bigger accomplishment than those 3 people if you add it all together, right? So making those small steps that improve your life are worth doing. And that's what this is about, is we're trying to get you on a path that sets your life up for what you want it to be, instead of leaving that dream out there and saying, well, I'm not those 3 people. And statistically you're not, and that's okay. Me neither. And so it doesn't mean that you're not worth chasing after those goals, that you're not worth making your life into what you want it to be. And it doesn't mean that it won't be successful enough to benefit you just because it's not, at the level of Serena Williams or somebody to stay on tennis. Right. So what about goal setting, Michael? Because there's a lot of fog in looking at the future and saying, well, okay, maybe I'll undertake this big goal, this big idea. But what does the beginning of that process look like?
So the way that I like to do it is just writing down what the goal is, the big overarching goal. What is the final product that you want it to be? What is, your goal? Whether it's, I think we've talked about how my goal when I was competing in kickboxing, was to compete, win a championship. everyone has a different goal. I've been trying to write something, so I have a goal of what I have in mind. So I make that one goal specific. I write it down, because if you can't verbalize your goal, then you're not going to be able to really take the steps that you need to actually achieve that goal. And then we have talked about this before, but we use the SMART acronym, right? Goal setting, it's super easy, and you can use different things that you want, but this will help you focus in on the goal that you have. So our SMART acronym, if you don't know this, it's, I feel like I learned it a lot in school, or I got told it a lot in school, but SMART, the acronym stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, right? So going through these things, you can start defining your goal from this big kind of amorphous idea and start creating structure to it. I feel like that's the thing that I like to do, is create structure to the amorphous idea.
Yes, that's why we get along. I am an amorphous blob.
And so creating that structure will help you finalize that goal or actualize the goal, and then you can start making those baby steps towards the goal, because no goal is going to be reached in a day or two if it's that big goal, right? But it's going to take those baby steps. It's going to take that motion of, okay, I need to start acting like I'm already getting ready for the food truck, or whatever the example you used earlier, or I'm already spending my 10-15 minutes writing down because I want to become an author and I want to spend time doing it. I might not spend as much time doing it because I'm not an author now, but I need to at least set that time apart. I need to set that time apart. If my goal is a different body type in a year from now, then you can, do whatever workouts you need to do. It doesn't have to be that hour-long or 2-hour-long time set away. It can be that 15 minutes, that 30 minutes, but be specific with it, and then have those measurable goals. And then we talked about that in a previous podcast about revisiting your work and reevaluating your work. I think that's something that you can look at, and it can be a measurable thing. I want to have this much, and then I can reevaluate it. And I think you had a really cool idea about reevaluating it, and it also had that measurable when you're talking about writing. I really enjoyed that kind of example that you used.
Well, I've got a couple here. One is that for an example from my own life right now, which is my goal for this year. Just to contrast, is like my foggy goal is like, I want to make more money this year. Mm-hmm. And so that is not a specific or an attainable, like it's attainable, but it's not specific. That doesn't tell me anything. I could make more money and then still be unhappy, and I'd have nothing to measure that against. It's like, well, I made more, but it's,
yeah.
And so I wrote it down as, I want to make $1 more an hour. Mm-hmm. And that was attainable. And that was like, time set was like 6 months. I want to be making $1 more than I'm making right now.
Yeah.
And as of today, I'm hitting that goal. Nice. And then the next goal is, money wise, is like, I'm going to start making more, time to do, both creative mentoring classes and, to start doing more like commission-based artwork. So anyway, those need to be more specific before I can set them on the table. Like I just got that $1 goal today. And it's like, okay, well, the next one was going to be this. So right now it's like, I need to make more time for commission-based stuff? Well, really, I need to advertise my commission-based stuff and define it better, right? And that's my next goal. Yeah. And then once I get that, then I'll market it and say, this is specifically what I do. But yeah, so it's like making that order out of the chaos. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because that's something I'm doing right now. So I've heard this writing assignment so many times in my life, and it's cut your work in half twice, essentially, is what it boils down to. So it's taking, say you have an 80,000 word manuscript for a book. Your first draft, you're going to take that and condense it down cut it in half, 40,000 words. A lot of the writers, any writers in the crowd are groaning at that, because I'm sure you've done it before, but it's like, and it's also a ton of work. So you cut it down in half, and you make sure that all that's left is specifically narrating your characters. It's necessary, and it is concise and specific and clear. Then you get it to 80,000 words again. And if that's not enough, you cut it in half again. Yep. And you make sure that it is only the information that you need it to be. And by the time you get to that step in the process, I guarantee you're going to have a very good idea what your story is, where it shines, where it doesn't. And it's going to be very, very dense and impactful. You're going to have it just gleaming, like pressure builds diamonds, right? That's the same idea, that you're going to be hemming yourself in to the point that all you can do is give value. And that's sort of like the corporation mindset, right? Like corporations do one thing, and that's sell whatever the corporation's there for. And their entire day, everything about them is catering to making the most profit off of that thing. So they're so specific, and they're so big that they have to be. And so the more you want to emulate something that's very successful, like a corporation, is the more thoroughly concise you want to be.
Yeah, I really like that example because it hits like all the smart acronym words. It's specific. You hit your 80,000 words, and then you cut it in half down to 40, and then you go back to 80. Cut it down to 40 if you need to again, and then back to 80. It's measurable because I think a word count is very measurable, and then cutting it in half. So whatever your word count is, when you feel like you hit the end of your story, then you can cut it in half and do it, I guess.
Remove the fluff.
Yeah, remove the fluff, add in the details. Then you can see like what elements that, could be foreshadowed. Did I put this thing in too early? Did I reveal something too early? Does my magic system not make sense? Does my world building not make sense? How can I make it better as I go on?
Are there some things in there that are just for you? Like, this is a fun scene that I just wanted to write and envision, that doesn't add anything to your character or your story.
Exactly.
That's me all the time.
It's achievable, right? So we know it's achievable because we see authors do it time and time and time again. They talk about their writing process, and the word count is achievable. It's relevant to what you want to do, So if you're writing or whatever project it is, it's very relevant to your interest. And then time-based, you can set your goal, whatever your time is for that.
And I started doing 1,000 words a day like 10 years ago. And it was so hard. I couldn't get past like 200 words a day. And now it's like, if somebody came up and told me like hearing these numbers, right, has got to be intimidating if you haven't done this kind of writing. But like 10 years later, if somebody came up to me and said, I need 40,000 words on just about anything, I'm not going to break a sweat. That's something I could do, and that's just repetition. Anyway, I wanted to throw that in. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, just, that's what I really like, that example. That's why it stood out to me when we were talking about this and you used that example. I was like, oh man, that hits it all. That hits it all. And then, that goal of an 80,000 word book or novel or whatever, you can just correlate that to anything else, a painting, your artistic style of whatever it is, your workout goal, especially like working out, specific body type, whatever, cutting weight, whatever. It can be measured, especially if you're cutting weight. Your body mass and muscle and lean mass can all be measured. It can be achievable. You see people do it time and time again. If that's what your goal is, obviously it's going to be relevant. And then there's that time-based component, and how realistic is that time-based? I think would go back to measurable. So you can use those in so many different areas. If you just think of it as a book, go back to after you think you finish, did I really reach my goal? Do I want to change the goal? What can I do to make my goals better? I'm not happy doing this workout. I'd rather do this other workout. I know for a lot of people that play sports, they still have that, as an adult, they still have that itch to emulate those situations in sports. So if I give someone just like a bodybuilding workout, they're not going to be happy as like going out and playing volleyball or going out and playing softball as part of their workout program.
Yeah, I think at all professional levels, it is about what you leave out at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime, like that's what I'm talking about. Removing the fluff. Every great artist, every great athlete at some point talks about how reducing it to its base elements, like we talked about with Paul the other day, always going back to the basics. Mm-hmm. There was a Wimbledon, going back to tennis again, it's on the brain. Yeah. There was a Wimbledon that Roger Federer won where I think most of his matches, he hit 3 balls to the backhand, 1 to the forehand. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was his entire strategy for the entire tournament, won it. Yeah. You know, I mean, like there was some variation depending on how the point unfolded, but it was like, he was so good that, I mean, most of the time he wouldn't even get to that 4th ball. Gotcha. And so he got to the point where it wasn't even necessary to do anything other than the basics because he was so good at what he was doing. Yeah. And, if you don't go through this rehearsal of breaking things down to their component parts, and rehearsing, making it polished, you're not going to get there. I was reminded of my process of learning how to draw faces that are realistic enough to mimic the person they're drawn of, and how I used to draw so many lines to like draw lips. It was like, you know, an insane amount of detail with no shading and no midtones, right? Like it was just all these lines, show all the skin, show everything, and it was like, that's not what it looks like at all. You know, and it's like, it's a very subtle tone change, and it's like, what details are you putting in versus what ones are you taking out, where it ends up being like 3 or 4 lines and that's it. And a little bit of shading and you're done. And that's more realistic than it's ever been for me. And it takes way less time, but it's all about like choosing your details and choosing, what benefits you versus what doesn't. And I think back to the starting your big ideas, the overarching idea of this episode, I want to talk about breaking things down to their component parts. So like, just to get a little bit more specific about like the food truck idea. Yes, he could start, you know, get his business license and start selling his barbecue today. I don't know what the license process is, but
well, even before that, I mean, if what I've seen people do, like you think about, you know, we're in the South, people make their tamales, right? Yeah. Like people make tamales whenever it comes time to like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and people make money off of that. Like when I worked at FedEx, like people would bring in tamales, they would have it in this lunchbox, and they'd be like, hey, you know, $10 for a dozen or whatever it is. I know that my mom at some point sold some of her salsa, you know? So, but I mean, it's local, it's the people that's around you. And like, that's how you can at least get a start, right? So before you even start with like the license, you can go around it the unofficial way, right? That's true. To your friends and family, like, hey, you know, there's a big
obviously reported to the IRS.
Yeah, there's you know, 4th of July is coming up, so why not, you know, hey, I'll make, you know, this and this for you guys. Just give me, you know, $20-$30 or however much it's going to
pay for materials or pay for
And so you're not making a lot of money, but you're getting that experience already of like, okay, now I'm gonna get this and then feed, you know, 3, 4, 5 families. So, you know, that's just an idea, you know, that you can brainstorm without. And I think that, again, talking about the big idea, you have to do the stuff that nobody wants to do. You're gonna have to do the small, almost like door-to-door type stuff. Yeah. And that would be one of those elements before you even get to looking up and being a small business owner and doing all that, before the money goes in that way, and before you're having to legally do it, I guess. I don't know. But be careful.
That's the point, is to reduce it to the point that it is doable today, tomorrow. Yeah. And that's, you know, I wouldn't have even thought of that. So like, that is a good idea. And it's like, the component parts are like, I want to make brisket and I want it to be for people, right? That those are the two main parts of the idea. And so, that's a super easy way to do it. Have people pay for time and materials, like a farm share or whatever, fresh produce kind of deal. That it's like, that's a great place to start. That's like, everybody in his life knows that he makes barbecue because he loves it so much. And so why not, start asking people, hey, I can cater your wedding if you want. I can make the stuff for that. Like,
and a lot of those like small steps towards your big goal, like they're going to be uncomfortable. As far as like me, personal training, that hasn't really been a goal of mine. So people have been telling me like, why don't you market yourself out and do this? It's like, well, I know the steps to do it. I know how to market myself and I've done it in the past. And it starts with posting on your social, posting on your neighborhood feed, talking to strangers, if that's really what I wanted to do. And so I've been there and I've had to do like that grunt work, and nobody likes to do it, but that's how you start. That's how you get into it. That's how, if I hadn't done that, and if I hadn't done, think about when I first started personal training with, at the center. If I hadn't done that for free and just given my time to get the experience of having clients, then I wouldn't have eventually gotten paid for it, It starts somewhere. And I do have that goal, again, to be a trainer, to be a coach. Again, not right now, but that is still a goal of mine. And so I still keep the practice up just little bit by little bit, just to keep my tools sharp. And I still stay in the field and I'm still learning and growing as much as I can. But, it starts at the little things, and it starts at the uncomfortable steps. Driving 45 minutes to work out, or to help people through a workout for free, and then drive 45 minutes back. Not the greatest thing to do. Could have maybe found something closer, but it was uncomfortable. But I gained so much experience from it. And starting the big idea on the floor level and just doing it, you're gonna get the idea of, hey, do I like this shit or not? Like, is this something I really want to do? Or, you know what, maybe I need to reevaluate my goal. Maybe this isn't what I want to do. Again, that's what I learned with Camp Gladiator. Like, this isn't what I want to do. I enjoyed the people there. I did not enjoy the pay or the process.
No, exactly. There's so many people that I've gotten into conversations with that are talking about like, I want to do this when I retire. This is what I want to spend part of my nest egg on. Right. And they've never done it before. They don't even know whether they would like it or not. And it's like, there was in my hometown, there was an antique store that would change owners every year and a half. And it's like, it was all retirees who thought, I want to run an antique store when I retire. And none of them liked it enough to get through the painful parts, and I think it ended up that brick and mortar ended up being a church. But anyway, it's like people who wait are surprised. And that's really, I guess, my thing that I want to caution people away from is don't wait to be surprised by something. I feel like I've been telling this story so many times, and I know I've told it on the podcast before, which is like, I've written down 2.5 bucket lists in my life, and I've completed everything other than publishing a book on those lists. And I've learned so much from doing that. And of course, they were all attainable things for me. It's not like I'm going to ride in a Bugatti or something, so anyway, but I've been able to push myself to things that I never thought I'd be able to do because I wasn't waiting to find out what that would look like. And I was able to reduce it down to something I could do, like learning how to draw. I used to try to sketch my professors during lectures because I was doodling anyway. That's one of the things that helps me remember. Like, I would look at a page and like see the doodle and be like, that was this lecture. And so then I started like drawing pictures of my professors, and they were terrible, absolutely terrible. And eventually it just gave me a reason to draw, and eventually I started getting better and better. And now I can draw kind of whatever I want to. May not be good the first time, but I can get it there. And it's been like 10 years later, and it's just because I wasn't afraid of what it would look like. Like, you know, when I'm sitting there imagining, I want to be a game designer and I want to design characters. And it's like, well, what do I really want to do? What's the first step to that? Being able to draw something realistically. Okay, well, let's start on that process, you know, so that, you know, if I do make that decision, I do have fun with it, which I have fun with it, just not enough to do it all day, every day, I don't think. but anyway, that I learned that, and that's a valuable thing to know, just because I undertook it and I didn't wait to have all my ducks in a row and be like accepted by the school I wanted to get into and whatever else it would entail in my fantasy of what that is. So I wouldn't have to have a food truck to give someone food and them to enjoy it.
Right. Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah. What else we got on this one?
I think, you know, starting with, you know, the small ideas and the digestible things for your big idea is also, you know, this is also a call to action. What is your big idea? Say what it is out loud, and don't sit on your idea, because like you said, far too often people sit on their idea of, oh, I want to go and do this when I retire. I want to do that when I retire. Why not start now? This is a call to action right here. Start your whatever process. Start your food truck business by not giving out, but, you know, asking, hey, I'll make this for you. Do it at a discounted price.
And that's such a good point too. Like, just speak your idea into existence. Like,
because like, think about it too. Like if you wouldn't have said like, oh, you know, getting your license, I was like, you don't even need to do that. You know, like so many people have so many different ideas and life experience that saying your idea out loud will spur other people. And, you know, it's just like the creative process whenever we're both together. What do we call it?
Jew. Dude.
Exponential creation, right?
I said Jew. Sorry. I was trying to say dude.
Exponential creation, right? So when you wish it into existence and say your big idea, other people are going to be able to be like, oh, let me help you with this. Oh, let me give you advice on this. Oh, you can do it like this. Here's how I've done it. Because so many people, you don't know what they were doing 10 years ago. You don't know what they were doing 5 years ago. Especially like as you're meeting new people and you say these big ideas, like you don't know the experience that other people have that can offer you. And people are willing to help, at least give their ideas. People love to talk, right? People love to give their ideas and give their 2 cents in. So throw the idea out there and see what happens.
Yeah. Brandon Gorey was my buddy photographer in Austin. He told me, I guess it's 4 years ago now. Like, I'd known him for years, and he came over and saw my guitar on the wall, and he's like, I didn't know you played an instrument. And I did. So he told me to play him a song, so I did, as people often do, right?
Yep.
And prove it. So anyway, so I grabbed the guitar, play it, and he's like, there's so many things that you do I never knew you did. He's like, why is that? I was like, you need to start telling people about what you're doing. And lo and behold, 3 years later, our second CD just came out, Molly Moon Band. Check it out. Yeah, anywhere you listen to music, Molly Moon is one word. So anyway, because I started talking to people about, this is what I do, this is what I enjoy doing, I started getting people that were interested and wanted to help and wanted to participate. And because of that little village worth of people, I was able to put out 2 CDs, you know, with them. Blessed to be a part of that process. And so that is the power of talking about it. And a lot of people, especially artists, you know, we can get depressed in our repetition, and artists definitely crave novelty and new things to spark off that part of their brain. And so a lot of times they're sitting there stagnant. And if you give them a vision that they can see themselves adding to, then you're going to get a lot of people wanting to add to it. So like for me, it's like, even if I'm stale, if I've got an idea from like 5 months ago that I really wanted to try, but I'll just keep mentioning it to people. And that's what happened for the pirate show that I'm working on. Is a product of me talking about D&D with a coworker. I've always wanted to do like a little radio show short, and that's been for like 5 or 6 years. I just never really talked about it. I started talking about it at work. We met Paul. He does voiceover, which he didn't mention in his in his interview at all.
That came out later.
But he does voiceover. And so, that's another person not saying it. But as soon as he said it, we did like this Dungeons and Dragons intro for the pirate campaign that we do together. And and he killed it. It was so good. And it was like immediately when it was done, it was like, this is the time to do it. I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
And so just another project that came from talking. And without that, it's just a fun idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like my fear is like people are going to shut down the idea, and the opposite is also true, is like allow them their chance to react to your idea, because it may be positive. You don't know what they're going to say. Like, I didn't know you were going to say, just go door to door. Like, that's baller. Yeah. And so if I hadn't said that out loud, like, I got to allow you to have your response to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I had a thought that I was going to add on to it, and it fluttered away.
Nice. Do you know what's been inspiring you lately, Michael?
Do I know what's been inspiring me lately? I mean, I definitely know. As of the recording of this podcast, I think the last episode of Demon Slayer for this season came out this past Sunday, and the Sunday before, I was at a friend's place and we watched a little bit of Demon Slayer, and he made up a whole D&D world based off of like this anime style kind of Demon Slayer-esque vision that he had for the world, and he was like super into it, and I was super into it, and so for me, like, just the whole story arc of Demon Slayer and the demons, and adding those type of things into my campaign. They create villains that actually you can understand like the humanity behind them. You can kind of understand why they chose to become a demon. Some of them, you get good like main characters, some different kind of story arcs, some different challenges. The demons for me, really, as a dungeon master, I was like, ooh, how can I use these like kind of abilities that the demons have and use them in a like a BBEG, and like how can I like use this and it makes story sense to really challenge the players and put a different twist on some of the like OG monsters. So that's what's been inspiring me, just Demon Slayer, and like how it just spurred my brain to add certain elements that you wouldn't probably add into your game, into your D&D game. So that's where my mind has gone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's what's been inspiring me. And what has been inspiring you this week?
Well, this is a bit of an odd one, but we had a barbecue last week with some coworkers, and we always have these games that we play. It's just like super easy, but like easy to be competitive about games. Yeah. And we always have like some sort of trophy. Mm-hmm. And I found this Lego set that was like a dude grilling over a trash can. It was like super strange. Like, anyway, so he had a hot dog, and anyway, so people enjoyed that. Somebody won, and then one of my coworkers who didn't win was like, "Dude, I'm trying to get that. I'm trying to get that Lego set." And then they started looking into it, and then they started building this whole story around hot dog stand guy. Like, they found some obscure Lego set that's got like this guy that's got his whole little like rolly cart, and anyway, they just started building this whole story around it, and it got me thinking, like, it's too easy in life to discount and discard the little things that we interact with on a daily basis. And it's like, there's so much richness and story and art in even the smallest things. And like that one world building episode I did forever ago where we started with a pencil, it's like, if you start with something that inspires you, you can almost do no wrong, right? Mm-hmm. That's my favorite thing to tell people when I'm taking pictures of them, is like, okay, where you're at right now, lighting is perfect. You can do no wrong. Just whatever feels right, go for it. It's my favorite thing, because those are always going to be the best pictures, because they feel so relaxed. They feel good about themselves. You know, it's like, And that's my encouragement to myself and to the other folks listening is you can do no wrong. Once you're inspired, start making that art.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's got me through this week. I've been real hyped about that.
Solid.
All right. So let's get back into starting your big ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we? We were gatekeeping ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So one of the ways that we can get away from gatekeeping and get out of our own way is to define what's in front of us. And that is through research. Mm-hmm. So there's so many, there's so much out there that is rich information. We all have access to the internet. We just need to know how to refine our keywords and get to the information we need. I feel like most people are super computer literate, and more so than me, in fact. So I feel like that's a pretty easy one, is like, make sure you define the thing that you're afraid of, because that is what's really going to allow you that freedom to not be afraid, right? So if I'm looking at a business license, continue with that example, is really scary to do. It's like, well, that seems really official. That seems like a long process. It's probably really expensive. Like, I can think of my anxiety can think of 1,000 things why that's going to be an unbearable process. I'm going to have to stand and wait in line, like whatever. Yeah. And so instead of allowing myself to spiral and lose focus, it's going to be a way quicker process if I just do a quick search and say, what do I have to do for that? Mm-hmm. And then I have a specific attainable goal, because it's exactly $250 or whatever it is. So I can work on saving that up. It becomes something that is within your wheelhouse instead of this mythical beast that is out there just waiting for you to mess up. So that is my point with research, is that you just really need to dive into it and not be afraid to learn about the thing that you want to do.
I think one of the things that, we talked about outlining a couple weeks ago. And for me, my biggest fear, but a fear that I had was like, I need to have all the story points outlined, and I need to have, I need to make sure the main characters have this going on and have this going on, and have this challenge. And yes, but also I was listening to another video recently, and it was like, you can outline, but leave space for you to be inspired and create, and don't limit yourself to, oh, well, the story already had this. That's when you can go back to it and re-edit it. And that to me was like, I didn't realize I was holding in my breath. And then I was like, oh man, okay, yeah, that's right. I can write stuff, and it might not match with what I've already written, but that's okay, because this isn't the final product. Going off the research and like the anxiety and the stress, I like to tell myself, like, what's the worst thing that'll happen, right? The worst thing is I might maybe embarrass myself if I write something that doesn't match. I'm not going to die. So what's your big adventure? You're not going to die. So in my mind, if you're not going to die, then screw it. Go for it. The worst thing that can happen isn't that bad for the most part when you're talking about these big ideas, or these big goals that you have for yourself. And like you said, research sometimes can alleviate that and be like, oh, okay, it's only going to be this. It's only going to be that. Okay, I don't need to stress about it. The worst thing that can happen is I have to wait in line for a little bit.
Yeah, pulling that fear back to the real world, like we're so happy to do about our art, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm not going to get famous for this one. It's like, okay, but also pull your fear back. If you're going to do that for your hopes and dreams, do it for your fear too.
Exactly.
And that being said, research is important, but with the pirate show I'm working on, I'm done outlining episode 3, and I like to do basically things that I need to call back in the next episode at the end of my outlines. So it's like, here's like plot lines or points that are going to carry forward. So I've got a little mini outline to work back from for the next episode. But anyway, so I've got a little bit on episode 4, which I'm only doing 5. So I'm pretty close to done with the outlining. And I saw a YouTube video that was like, if you are writing a main character, which of course you are, if you're writing a main character, then you need to write down their core belief, because their core belief is what you need to challenge for the entire season. Like that's what you need to revisit, is put them through their paces, take them to their limit, and let's see how much they believe in what they believe in. And I was like, I didn't do that. So now I got to start over. I got to stop. You know, this is I've done, it's all wrong. I've got egg on my face. It's too late. And it stopped me from writing that day, which is anyway, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. I'm sure people can relate, and not my best moment. And so what I had to remind myself was to get back into the writing chair was that I am always working towards making the story, the outcome, whatever I'm working on, making it the best possible product I can. I think that's true of most of us. You're always trying to play your advantages. And I'm still trying to do that now with new information. And anytime you start a project, like we talked about earlier, especially if you're talking with 10 or 15%, you're going to come across things that surprise you, things that you're going to feel like you missed, things you could have done better. That's okay, because you're still that person with the good intention, pushing forward, that is going to revisit then, you know, from here on out, I'm going to have that information. So when I go back and actually start putting the script together from the outline, it's going to be in there because I know it now. Right.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, well, I need to scrap it. It's again, the same idea of we need to reduce that to its component parts. Why do I feel like I need to scrap it? Okay. Because I need to have the idea where I'm challenging my main character. Okay. Can I still do that with what I have? Yes. Right. So it was a moment where I just fell apart, and then it was a good moment because, you know, I had that realization of what came to be this episode, which is, there is always a way forward, and there is always a way to make lemonade out of lemons.
Absolutely. And I feel like sometimes even in that situation, it helps your story grow as you grow.
Yeah. And that's what keeps us watching like long-term television shows like season 2, 3, 4, and 5, because every year the show learns more about what the show is, you know, and what the characters are. Everything gets more refined, and it gets better and better and better. And that's what keeps people watching. You know, if it was the same monotone thing the whole time, you know, it's not going to be as impactful. I mean, there's shows that are like that, like Family Guy is the exact same thing it's always been. The Simpsons, you know, the animation's gotten better on both of those, but it's like it's the same thing. But you go to those shows for a different reason. Those shows, it's like you want to check in with your cast of characters and see what they're up to. But anyway, growing is an exciting part of all art. And if you don't have that trajectory, then it'd be a little weird.
Yeah, for real. For real.
Be a little out of place, but all right. Pardon me.
Wow. Big yawn.
Big yawn. Big yawn. Big ideas. I'm starting that big yawn now on air. But that's the end of what I had for the show. Michael, do you have anything else?
I was about to ask you, any final thoughts for your big ideas? Anything else you want to say that 55 minutes couldn't cover?
Get out there and kick ass. It's all about taking on life. Make life regret that you were born. Take it on. Take it out. I think it's important that, you know, with our, you know, life is long and life is short. And now is your moment to undertake your biggest dreams. The things that scare you are the things that you need to do. So pursue them with reckless abandon. And, you know, you are absolutely worth the hard work, the outcomes, and it's great experiencing the pain if it's in pursuit of your dreams. I know that's weird to say, but it's like when it is purposeful, intentional, pain that you've taken on, it's almost like that Knight's Code kind of thing. Like you're taking it on with honor, and you're accepting it, and you are choosing to be selfless in pursuit of this goal. And it's really a beautiful thing. And so I hope everybody listening has the opportunity to pursue that. Get out there, kick ass, take names. That's what I got to say. That's the Creative Thinker podcast for this week. Thank you so much for joining. Wherever you're at in the world, we know you're out there. We're listening. We appreciate you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.